Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Nash County Board of Education's committee meetings to order. Um, we will start with the Student Support Services and Operations Committee. Mrs. Thomas Bullock.
So good evening. We are going to go ahead and get started with the Student Support Services and Operations Committee meeting. Thank you so much. This is my first one since we made the transition. So I'm glad to be here and to work with this team as well. I'll start with the roll call. Dr. Chavis, Dean Edwards, Bill Sharp. Okay, and Ricky Jenkins.
Edwards is here. He's just there.
Okay. Okay, so I will begin with approval of the meeting minutes from January 4th. At this time,
Mr. Jenkins is
okay, so for the record, Mr. Jenkins is here. So now we have a quorum. So I will begin with approval of the January 4th meeting minutes. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 4th.
That's you, Ricky.
Student services.
Oh, I made a motion to approve that.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so it has been properly seconded. I will take a vote. Honorable Chavis is not here. Dean Edwards. Hi. This is just approval of the minutes from the last meeting from January 4th.
Okay.
Yes? No?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Sharp? Mr. Sharp?
Yes.
Are you a yes?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Jenkins?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. So they are approved. Thank you. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be a great day. All right, so at this time, we will have the transportation update. Mr. Byler, if you don't mind.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so DMV training, updates on transportation. We got DMV training. 2 weeks ago, I received an update from Fred Garner from the DMV regarding the upcoming training schedule that has been arranged for Nash County. He plans to supply 2 trainers for Nash and Halifax County in the upcoming weeks. Yes, man, excuse me. The DMV has scheduled 4 drivers the week of the January 29th, and that's this week. At the moment, there's 25 TA drivers waiting for behind the wheel. In addition, we have 43 TAs who are requiring the appropriate classroom and behind the wheel training as well. Even in the absence of a DMV trainer, we successfully onboarded 6 new drivers and implemented additional routes for Nash County. DMV hiring process. We received a message that the DMV has selected a candidate for the DMV trainer for Nash in Halifax County. They anticipate a 4 to 5 week processing time for the hiring packet to be completed. Once the candidate is on board, it'll be 10 to 12 week training. We expect them to have a trainer by the end of May, a full-time trainer here at Nash County. Student ridership. So at the beginning of the school year, there was 7,750 students utilizing the bus transportation service. Between August and December or January, Transportation Department removed an additional 1,400 students. Removing these students will enhance the efficiency in transportation on our routes. Mr. Leonard, Ms. Morris, and I had meetings with the assistant principals at each school to finalize the removal of students from the buses. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
When everybody gets trained and all, that means we should have a surplus of drivers.
Well, we're still down 25 drivers.
25. Okay.
TAs are gonna be not full-time drivers, but TAs are gonna be filling in as drivers as needed. So, yes, I hope so. If we get all 43 and the 25, I'm hoping that we will have a surplus of drivers.
So starting, hopefully by next year, we'll have everybody trained that wants training.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely should have a surplus by then.
Mm-hmm. And right now, you know, people who are applying, we're not accepting any applications from people who are applying without their Class B CDLs right now, because there's no need to, you know, start onboarding them until we have a trainer. But we do have people applying every day for a bus driver position to get their license, but we can't help them at this time. Yes, sir.
In the slide, it was talking about the 2 trainers coming down.
Mm-hmm.
One for Nash, one for Halifax,
Mhm.
right? One for Nash, how many is he or she gonna be able to train?
There's gonna be 4 drivers, two apiece for the trainers.
Okay.
So one's gonna have 2 drivers and the other one's gonna have the other.
And where are these drivers gonna be located is in this county?
2 of them are gonna be full-time drivers. Right now, we're probably gonna use them just to cover open routes and call outs. And then the other 2 are like TAs, and they're gonna be covering for their schools.
Which are where?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know the individual's name. I could get back with you though, I'll let you know.
Okay, I just didn't know if you were able to select about what part of the county each of these 4 are going.
Yeah, no, I haven't gone into the far, but I could let you know.
Is there one part of the county that seems to have more missed drivers or missed times than anybody else?
No, it's countywide.
Is that it?
Well,
Are
thank,
any other questions? No? Okay, thank you so much.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions? No other questions, then I will adjourn.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas Bullock and the Student Support Services and Operations Committee. The next committee that will come before us is the Policy Committee. Ms. Bullock?
Good afternoon. I would like to call the Policy Committee to order. And with that, I would, the chair would entertain a motion if we could amend the agenda to add policy 4316, dress code policy, to the agenda for tonight. Is there a motion?
Are you making it, Evelyn? Do you need a second?
I was asking for a motion, but I can if I have to. Are you making that motion?
Oh, yeah, so moved. To
Second.
amend
I'll
the
second
agenda
it.
as requested.
It's been moved and seconded that we, add policy 4316 dress code to the agenda, for tonight. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And for the record, we have present here, Mr. Dutton, Miss Dr. Washington, and Mr. Edwards, and I make up a quorum for the policy committee. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we approve the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, the minutes will stand approved as read. We have two items then for discussion tonight. Item number 3 is fall policy recommendations from the school board with substantive changes. And these are for first read. Jason, are you doing those? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just got a couple policies tonight. Your first one is policy 7130. I'll give it a moment to get up on the screen here. So this is your licensure policy. There's a couple of minor changes related to changes in terminology at the state level around lateral entry licenses. Those are now called residency licenses. The main substantive change is a little further down here in section B6. This addition is related to a change in State Board of Education policy that flows down from federal law regarding licensure requirements for those who are serving in the military or their spouses. Under this new State Board of Education policy, service members or spouses who are under military orders to relocate to North Carolina, if they have a current teaching license from another state, they are allowed to teach in North Carolina, be paid on the teacher salary scale using their out-of-state license. So it essentially creates an exception to the standard licensure rules. These individuals are not required to get a North Carolina license. They can continue to teach under their out-of-state license for the duration of the military orders. And if they so choose, when the orders expire, they can then apply for a North Carolina license at that time. And that's pretty much it. There might be some conforming changes at the end.
Are there
There's a
questions?
reference to the statute.
I'm sorry. Are there questions on policy 7130?
Ms. Bullock, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Jason, so on this ordinance, on this statute, once a person leaves the service, they can, what you're saying is they can get certified as a state license by the state of North Carolina, or do they have to take the full test, or how does that work?
That's right. So if an individual, let's say the military orders and or for any other reason, they can go through the normal process for getting a North Carolina license. So this is an exception to the regular process. If they want to continue teaching, they just go through the normal process for an initial professional or residency or whatever it is that they would qualify for.
Are there other questions?
So, yeah, real second question. So how does that impact with our junior ROTC program?
I do not know the answer to that.
ROTC.
I don't think that would.
I don't necessarily know exactly how it would impact. How would it impact the JROTC program, if at all?
Well, we are short with leaders and instructors now in that program. We've lost 2 and possibly leaving a 3rd one, school that process. And I'm thinking, will the same rules hold true for that as with the NDAA program that was finalized last year.
Could you speak up, Ms. Wallace, please?
So the problem for us, we just don't have interested candidates for the ROTC program.
My concern is not necessarily candidates, but we're changing the statute and the law for that now when it comes to teachers. So what you're saying from a military perspective, this same application should hold true to the junior ROTC program. If we get teachers who are certified with that, can't they roll that over? Will they have to roll that over, or can they roll that over into a junior ROTC program?
So it might be a separate process. I apologize, I'm not familiar with the process and requirements for those who staff the JROTC programs. I do know that the way this particular new exception to the state licensure requirements is set up, these individuals are allowed to teach in their licensure area. So I don't know if there's crossover between that and JROTC.
Can you find that out for me, please?
I'd be happy to look into that.
Thank you.
Well, if you're gonna look into it forward, I'll hold my question.
So this would just be that if someone's moving from another state, that their husband, spouse was in the military, they're now in North Carolina, they're going to South Carolina. It's just saying they'll be transferable. Right. So I would think ROTC, as long as they are qualified.
They have to be in the military.
Right. It's a little different, yeah.
Doesn't mean that the spouse is.
Right.
Right.
And the reason I'm asking that question, if you read the new legislation that came out regarding that from 2023, there may be some exceptions to that. And I know we probably need to be aware of that if it is, so that we can sort of respond to it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jason will give us more information on that process.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, policy number 7510.
7510, just a small addition, or short addition, adds a new section D. This addresses new paid parental leave that went into effect based on legislation from the fall. Just codifies that particular type of leave into your policy manual. This is paid leave that allows up to 8 weeks for the individual who's giving birth, and then up to 4 weeks for the partner.
Are there questions about 7510 leave? 7520.
And 7520 also just includes a small minor change referencing the new paid parental leave provisions down at the I believe it's in the very last page, related to paid leave and FMLA. And some minor editorial changes as well.
Questions on 7520? 7730.
7730, these changes are similar to some that you saw last month. There are new state requirements requiring conflicts of interest training for anyone who's involved in making or administering contracts at any level of the school district. You considered a similar change. I can't remember exactly which policy it was last month, and this includes pretty similar language.
Are there questions about 7730? Employee conflict of interest? Then 8325.
8325, this is your daily deposits policy. As you can see, there are no red lines to this. So basically, so this policy requires daily deposits of all monies received with at the end of a day with your school treasurer, who then has to deposit it with your finance office for cafeteria managers, then it's deposited with that individual for cafeteria money. So as written, it creates an exception to the daily deposit requirement for amounts that are less than $250. In the NCSBA model policy, this is actually just a blank for you to fill in. And the board, there was a recent change in the state statute that allows you to change that threshold amount from $250 all the way up to $1,500. So it's at the board's discretion whether to keep this as is, whether to raise it, no more than $1,500. It could be somewhere in between. It's something for you to consider. You could certainly defer to staff to bring recommendations at a future meeting, but it's just been a change that gives you some discretion here.
Other questions on policy 8325? Mr. Dunton?
My only question is, I think what Mr. Weber just said is, in practice, is 250 an acceptable amount, or are they having to go to the bank more often than they need to because they can't keep up to $1,500? So that would be the only thing, if there is some guidance there that yes, they have the ability to keep that money and keep it safely, or no, they really don't carry that much. So having to make deposits at those intervals is an encumbrance upon the staff.
Well, from a liability standpoint, I'd be in favor of leaving it at the minimum of 250. In case something were to happen, we would be at a minimum loss. So.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you certainly could do nothing and it would stay as is.
Are there other comments or questions? All right, then the last policy in this group is policy number 9125, participation by minority businesses.
And this is just a change to your first paragraph. There was a change in the statute to the definition of minority business, and these changes are designed to align with that statutory change.
Other questions? Hearing none, then I would ask for a motion to recommend to the full board for first reading the 6 policies that we just discussed. Is there a motion?
I move that we recommend the 6 policies that we just reviewed to the full board for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we recommend to the full board approval for first read the policies that we just reviewed. Are there any questions? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. The next item on the agenda that we added was policy number 4316, dress code policy. And Jason, if I might just say that this policy is coming before us tonight just to remind us that we discussed this policy back in October, and that we will be bringing this policy back to the board at our next regular board meeting for final reading. If you have any questions on it, Mr. Weber will gladly answer whatever questions you might have.
Yes, ma'am.
And we don't have to vote on this, I would think, Jason, because we've already had it for a first read.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's correct. This came to the policy committee October 30 and then was moved forward to the full board for first read at the November
6th
meeting. So it would be coming back for second read next Monday.
Okay. Is there anything else to claim the attention of the policy committee? If not, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bullock. The next committee will be the Academic Services and Accountability Committee. Mr. Lamb.
Yes. I Call the roll. Dr. Washington.
Here.
Ms. Billy.
Here.
Ronald Thomas Bullock.
Here.
Bill Sharp.
Here.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Sharonda Thomas Bullock, second by Dr. Washington. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All disapproved, say no. Motion carried. Dual language placement for 2024-2025. Yolanda Williams.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I'm here this evening to talk to you about the dual language immersion placement for next school year. I always like to start with the why. So you all know that Inglewood and Winstead Avenue Elementary School are going to be becoming two separate schools next year as a result of the demerger. So currently the program is split between two schools. So it starts at Winstead Avenue in K2, and then it continues 3-5 in Inglewood. So this is another reason why we have to make the decision to place the program at one of the two K-5 schools. And then another reason why is because it is going to be very beneficial for all of the teachers K-5 to be in one school. So like currently, it's kind of difficult for them to be able to collaborate and plan together. So the teachers, aside from being anxious about which school would be chosen, we're very excited that they will be together under one roof. So the site that was chosen was Winstead Avenue Elementary School. And the factors that we looked at were building capacity. We looked at student and staff impacts. We looked at the program longevity, program effectiveness, and then we also looked at feeder patterns. So the biggest factor is the building capacity. So if you look at this chart, you'll see that, and this is the physical building. So Inglewood's building capacity is 508 students. And then Winstead Avenue's building capacity is 625. So Winstead Avenue can hold or house more students. And the reason why this is important is because we have 122 total students K-5. And of that 122, I would say about 20 to 25% are students that are outside of the Winstead Avenue Inglewood school zone. So we do need a facility that is going to be large enough to house all of the students that are currently in the immersion program, plus those that are outside of the school zone. Another reason is if you look at the amount of staff that's impacted. So at Inglewood Elementary School, we have 3 teachers or 3 staff members that are impacted. We have 2 dual language immersion teachers, as well as the English teacher, because remember this program at 3-5 is 50-50. So the students get half of their day in English and then they get the other half in Spanish. So there's a 3rd teacher that actually teaches the English and the social studies in English. So we would definitely want that teacher to continue with the program because she's already started working with those students and then she's already familiar with those teachers. At Winstead Avenue, we're looking at 5 staff members. So we've got a kindergarten teacher first, second, and then we also have a co-teacher, and then we have an English tutor. So we're looking at less staff having to transition. I skipped one, I skipped that middle line. So like I said, we have 122 total students. So with the program being able to remain at Winstead Avenue, we're looking at 71 students being able to stay on that campus. If you look at the number of students that are at Inglewood, currently they have 51. Now, traditionally across the state, we normally see a decrease in the numbers when they get to 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So that's the reason why that number is smaller than the 71. But we also we can subtract 17 because currently The fifth grade class is 17 students, so those 17 students will be transitioning into middle school. So we're only looking at 34 students, 2 classes that will be transitioning back to Winstead Avenue. And back is a key word because they were there. So they're already familiar with the school. And then some other factors that we looked at was longevity of the program. So the program started out at Winstead Avenue, so it's been there for 7 years. And then at Inglewood, it has been there for 3.5. So it's a little bit more embedded in the culture at Winstead Avenue. We also looked at feeder patterns, but considering the students at Winstead Avenue and Inglewood are more than likely going to both feed into Rocky Mount Middle, that's, that one, we looked at it, but we realized that all of the students are gonna, feed into that school anyway. Another thing that we looked at was, or most likely, another thing that we looked at was program effectiveness. So we just kind of went through a rubric of evaluating a lot of different aspects of the program. And as a result of that evaluation, we found that both of the programs are pretty strong. Some of the site combination considerations. So even the students who are deemed or it's decided that they're in Inglewood Elementary School Zone, they're still going to be able to continue with the dual language immersion program. So any students that are currently in the program whose parents want them to continue will continue. If there are any transportation needs, and we think that's going to be minimal, but if there are any, just like we did with our Middlesex and Bailey Elementary School consolidation, we'll do the same thing with this one and provide the transportation if it's needed. And then another consideration is that even though the 2 schools will be decided in, there'll be 2 separate school zones, we're still, for the application process for our kindergarten class, we're still going to take the first 24 that sign up from both of those school zones, because currently they serve both of those communities. I mean, the community is considered one now. So we're going to continue to open up the program to all of those students that are still in both of those communities. I hope that made sense. I've still got a little tickle in my throat, so. Questions? That was fast. What questions do you have?
Any questions for Ms. Wiggins? Mr. Dunn?
Ms. Wiggins, is there currently, or certainly going forward, consideration given for siblings? Like as you do this, when one child might be here and one child might be at another school based on convenience for the parents?
Yes, so we actually do that now. So we do that for our schools at, in Rocky Mount, as well as on the southern end. If we have some students who are in the dual language immersion program, but their sibling is not, for the convenience of the parents, those students are still allowed to go to attend the same school. Is that what you're asking?
I think so, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Wiggins?
I do, just to clarify, so I know it's a lot of transition, but we're not talking about a transfer process in any of this. Just to clarify, this is simply based on your decision to enter or continue into the Spanish immersion. So we're not talking about a transfer or requiring any additional permission in order to do that, just for.
That would be a question for Dr. Farrow. So let's say that those students who are in the Inglewood school zone, would they still have to go through the transfer process in order to remain at Winstead Avenue's dual language immersion program?
Yes,
like that paperwork piece?
Yes, because it would still be a part of our educational services piece that we provide through the transfer process.
But with that understanding. Okay.
And I didn't want to misspeak, because I do know that that's also what we had to do for Bailey and for Middlesex. But one of the things that we did was to try to make it more convenient for the parents. We will always you know, when the time came around for transfers, we would make them aware that this is the time, here are the forms. And then if a parent forgot and we knew that that child had been in the immersion program before, then we made sure that there wasn't a holdup with that child continuing with the program. And then we would work really hard to just, you know, the paperwork is just a technicality. Does that make sense?
And we work very closely with Ms. Wiggins
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that we're getting those processed as seamlessly as possible.
Mr. Edwards?
Just last minute, speaking of the Bailey Middlesex conversion, are you gonna do a community forum for those parents?
Yes, so like one of our goals this particular school year is to do more parent information sessions. So we did some surveys at the end of last year, and we discovered that that's of course what parents are asking for, and including those parents that are still in the like the one, not just for the ones who are entering the program new, but for the ones that are still in it, because they want to be able to stay up to date on all of the information. And we're partnering with another agency that helps us with the training of our teachers and different things to make sure that our information is the most up to date. That was a long answer. Yes, we are.
Any other questions from Ms. Williams?
Ms. Lamb?
Mr. Sharp?
No, go ahead. Someone else starts talking. I'll wait.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say thank you because I know chairing formerly the Academic Services Committee, that was a long, drawn out process to get to this point. So thank you.
Yes.
Because I know how much really time that has taken in consideration. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Sharp?
Well, I think Sharonda said what I was going to say. I just want to say, appreciate that too. You presented the data extremely well, and you know I like to see data and information. You capture all of that, and the decision I think you guys are recommending to the full board I think is outstanding. So thank you, Ms. Wiggins. I know you're a dual language person, so I know your work and your labor has not gone unnoticed. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Career plans, Mr. Thompson.
Good evening. So tonight I'm going to present for information on the new law for career development plans. This is under Senate Bill 193, GS 115C 158. So I want to share with you the purpose within the law. So starting in 24-25, each student in grades 7 through 12 are required to create a career development plan. And this is also, we must utilize an electronic platform beginning the next school year, which we are in the process now of already working on, which we'll discuss in just a minute. So some of the processes that are involved in the career development plan. So we've already read the first one, but the second one is students must develop this plan beginning in the 7th grade and will not be promoted from grade 7 to 8 until the plan is completed. Then you can see on the 3rd block, also this plan must be revisited in the 10th grade before the student is promoted from grade 10 to grade 11. The law also calls for the career development plan to be easily accessible to students and parents. So our platform that I'm going to talk about definitely handles that and covers that as well. And then the last block there, you can see that parents must receive written notice of the creation of the plan and how to access this career development plan for their particular student. Now, within the career development plans, the actual components will consist of this. One being a self-assessment of students' aptitude, skills, values, personality, and career interest. Also, it must include exploration and identification of pathways for career alignment with the student self-assessment. This will include the identification of needed education, training, and certifications that go along with that. Also, information on the most cost-efficient path to entry. That may be, do I need a college education for this, or can I go directly into the workforce? Opportunities within the school setting to explore and prepare for the career. And then lastly, alignment of academic courses. So meaning on here you would include if you take IB classes, or if you take AP classes, or if it shows our pathways within career and technical education. All of that would be involved in the platform. So we have chosen to go as our electronic platform School Links. School Links covers each of these areas. Every student has access to School Links. Not only do our students have access, but every parent has access to their student's account through a unique code. So parents will be able to see what the students do each day on their career development plans. Also in School Links, it has a college search where you can go on and search any college in the United States, along with virtual tours, the cost. Also, it goes through work-based learning opportunities for students where they can explore. And then also the actual career development plan where they can build a resume, where they can take this resume to use in college, or they can take it and use for a job and for a profession. So there are many components in School Links. So I wanted to include the timeline of the rollout. So throughout the fall, we were just preparing for School Links and really getting 100% ready for a rollout for 24-25. So this past week, we actually did a lot of staff professional development, which you can see in January. We met with folks here at Central Office, did some training. We met with all our principals and did training. Then we have a team at every middle school and high school that is considered the School Links team, where we did training on Friday with them. And then the next piece of the timeline you can see will be the student implementation. And there, because it's not 24-25, but we must get a jump start on it so they're prepared. They will complete the first 2 portions of their career development plans, which just includes inventories. And that the reason for this is because we want the students to be familiar with, and parents, I want to say that very loud and clear, we want parents involved in this as well. So they are 100% aware of the platform. They know how to operate in the platform. So when we run into 24-25, they are prepared. And then through March, we'll give them time to explore the platform. And then in April, there's a high school course planner that involves them plotting out their courses from 9th through 12th grade already, what career plan they have, what course plan they have, for counselor advisement, for career development coordinator advisement to help students, to see which plan and path they would like to take. And then throughout the summer, we will continue to prep for the 24-25 rollout. And then, of course, in 24-25, roll this out. So I know that was a lot in a short amount of time, and there's still more. We'd love for you all to be able to see the platform and see the greatness in it. It's just amazing. I think everybody that we trained with, they were and oohing, and man, this is so great for students, the things they get to discover. So we're excited about this opportunity for our students. So I'll entertain any questions. Yes.
So I have 2 questions. The first part is, you talked about the team, and I think it's a great idea. I mean, I like the platform, but who is actually going to implement this? Is this school counselors? Is this part of the CTE program? How does
Yes.
that actually become implemented?
So if you talk about every student in grades 7 through 12, that's a lot of students. So one person cannot do that. So that's the reason we put the team in place as a collaborative piece. Just as we told the team on Friday, this is an easy platform to navigate. So really, let's say for instance, for the implementation, we're going to take a 20-minute homeroom time to start the implementation. Each teacher will need to know 3 things. Number 1, students know how to get on their PowerSchool already. They click on a single sign-on and School Links is there. All they do is click on the icon. And then they just walk through, we set tasks, and they just follow through those tasks. And so that will be, we feel like it's gonna be easy implementation because of that. And we're really trying to not put this burden, I don't wanna say burden, but when you talk about trying to roll something out on one person, we want to do this as a team.
My second question, so I'm, in my experience as a teacher, I guess I would say, I like pathways, but I think sometimes they can be a little restrictive for students who, change their mind. You think about being in 7th grade and making a decision that's gonna affect the rest of your life. So how much of this, will they have room to still make those decisions and make those changes? And I'm really asking, what would that look like? Because I'm sure there is room, but what would that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. We compared this on Friday with our teachers like a school improvement plan. This is a living document. Students constantly can change and go back and redo inventories to, they may get into, we always use this as an example. So if you get into a medical history, a medical field, and you start looking at blood things and you realize I'm not interested in blood, right? I can change. And so this is a constant entry in and out, and just really trying to find that path. So, you don't want to think they're creating a career development plan in the 7th grade and they have to stick with that. That's not what it's about. It's about exploration and discovery. So that by the time they get to the 12th grade, they have a good plan.
Looks like this would be an opportune time for us to grow our own teachers too.
Yes, sir.
Starting 7th grade and showing the plus of being a Nash County teacher.
Yes, sir. We're very much on board with that.
And that will feed right into the CTE program in the high school.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? Thank you.
Any more questions for the Academic Services and Accountability Committee? If not, I'll declare this committee adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. The final committee that will convene on today is the Administrative Services and Operations Committee. Mr. Dunton.
Thank you, Dr. Washington. I will call the Administrative Services and Operations Committee to order. First, we have our January 4th minutes from our last committee meeting. Everyone hopefully has had a chance, or actually before we do that, just for the record, we have Dr. Chavis, we have Mr. Lamb, we have myself, and Mrs. Bullock present as far as committee members. We did have Mrs. Bullock. Hopefully we'll have Mrs. Bullock again. But we're good with the quorum to move forward on that. Approval, review our minutes from our last meeting. Does anyone have any corrections, comments, changes? Hearing none, I'll submit those as the approved minutes from our last meeting. Our items tonight, we have 2 that are for discussion, one around demerger and the rebranding of the Nash County Public Schools as part of that, and then an action item with an accounting software change that Mrs. Saunders will deliver to us. But we'll start with Dr. Ellis and our demerger update.
So tonight, we will be updating the board on our latest demerger process. Remember, we around October had a transfer plan. About probably 2 months ago, we started with the facility plan. We introduced that at the committee meeting. We'll be voting on that this coming up Monday. So tonight, you're going to receive a in-depth presentation that we presented to community events Tuesday and Wednesday night. It's going to really get into some of the schematics of what the school is going to look like. It'll get into some of the projected cost. It'll talk about Spanish immersion. It'll talk about community meetings with a timeline. And you'll just see it gets a little bit more in-depth concerning the facility plan and where we move forward now with the demerger. So this time, Mr. Ward will go over this PowerPoint and we'll have a few that will come up and present some items. If you have any questions after the presentations, please, we have everyone here to answer questions.
Said it's confidential.
It should be open. Yeah, you post it.
Me being put on ice is a frequent occurrence here, I see.
I think it's unlocked now.
That's it. That should be it.
That's not it. That's the other one. Eyes up. That's not the updated one. Right, so it's the other one under. Right. What we do is we keep all ours in there because you can tell that was facility plan. The newest one should be. It's under the bottom of the. How do I have it? Heather, can you just send him the one you have? Because I thought I have it right here.
She's looking right at it.
It's in mine.
There we go. Yes.
Nah, okay.
All right, good evening. All right, here we go. All right, as Dr. Ellis just stated earlier, this plan we wanted to present before you just to bring you up to speed in terms of where we are. This will also be the plan or that we will share with the community Tuesday and Wednesday night. But we would like for you guys, we wanted you guys to see it first. Say hello to my little friend. All right, basically, we're gonna start with for the public. You guys have seen this before, just letting them know how we got here, who we are as a county, where we started, and moving forward. Of course, our campaign that we started when the demerger started, Growing Forward Together. This is inclusive of Nash County and also with Edgecombe County. As we grow forward together through this process, we just wanted to make sure that to the public that we are partners throughout this process from the beginning to the end. Just a simple historical timeline starting here with the 18th century all the way up to the 21st century, just giving them an idea, a blurb about our counties and how we came together, consolidated, and then to get to where we are right now with the demerger process. Consolidation of our plans. Our agenda will include our why, how do we get here, why we're doing this, our post-demerger, the schools that would be impacted, Williford, Edwards, Rocky Mount Middle, Inglewood, and Winstead. And we will share our feeder pattern plans, also our engagement process, communication channels, and give you a, well, Williford will also be included in one of the schools that we will talk about. Our why. Of course, you know, we would not be having these conversations or these presentations. It had not been for Senate Bill Session Law 248 in terms of prompting the demerger between Nash and Edgecombe County. Thus prompting the transfer of 4 schools in our TRC to Edgecombe County Public Schools. With that, we had the loss of student population, especially in our high schools, for 2 to 3 years. And then there was the placement of students living in Nash County, attending those schools that would be transferred to Edgecombe County Public Schools. And then looking at optimizing and utilizing our existing schools in space. Also considering the facilities at one of our particular schools, the amenities that's already there at Rocky Mount Middle School, the auditorium, the athletic fields, full-size gymnasium, large cafeteria space, and the auxiliary gym. Post the merger, of course, we were looking at replacing TRC staff, the EC staff, student services, the mental health program, driver's ed, records, support staff, and principals meetings that are currently housed at TRC, moving that staff somewhere else. Currently, these numbers that you see right now, these are not solid numbers. These numbers are subject to change. These numbers currently represent PMR for December, which will, as you can see, Baskerville, 87 students. I will say that these numbers do not include kindergarten because we do not have those projections yet. So you're looking at 1-4. DS Johnson, 58, Fairview, 57, Williford, 163 students lost, that are in Nash County that we currently have to place in the school, which would bring a total of approximately 365 students. Edwards is looking at approximately 31 students lost, bringing their enrollment to 400. Rocky Mount Middle, a loss of 99 students, bringing their enrollment to 195 approximately. And of course, our Rocky Mount Legacy students, those students that will have the option to stay here for the remaining of their 3 years in high school. In some cases, it will also be a sibling in the 9th grade if they choose to do that. Williford Elementary, as you can see, we're going to designate the 100 wing of Williford. The front of the school is on Williford Street, so that's facing the school. That's the wing there. That blue line represents a partition going up, not all the way across the wall, but to the pre-K wing will be isolated from the main building, giving them a more sense of security there. It would be up under controlled access, and that would be along the wall where the main office is. Move driver's ed office from the Teacher Resource Center to the 300 wing. Thanks. Transfer exceptional children's department and instructional staff. They will be housed on the 200 and the 500 wing of Williford. Also house exceptional children records for the county will also be located on the 300 wing. NETA will remain on the 400 wing. Propose 1 classroom on the 200 wing as a breakout rooms for professional development. And the multi-purpose room will be repurposed for principals meetings. And also there will be rooms that are there in the back, as you can see. There will be breakout rooms and office space right there at the media center as you first walk into the building. Of course, Edwards Middle, the plan is for Edwards Middle to become Edwards Elementary. We will be reconfigured into Edwards Elementary School. The school will enroll those students from Williford, those returning from Edgecombe County schools, those numbers that you just saw from those schools, and students from any other school that may be overcrowded due to the realignment process. The area behind the gymnasium will be utilized for storage here, optimization of space by the maintenance team. Edwards will be an opportunity cultural school, and that will provide a link for the public to see that we will show that night as well. And the continuation of a Spanish elective program that will be at Edwards Elementary. Rocky Mount Middle School, Edwards students will attend Rocky Mount Middle School. Middle school students from Edgecombe residing in Nash, along with others affected by the realignment process. Tar River Academy and City High will remain on that campus. As you know, Tar River is separate from the main building. That's in a building adjacent to the main campus, to the main building. The Spanish immersion program will follow those students over to the 6th through 8th grade, will be relocated to Rocky Mount Middle School. After the graduation of the legacy students, which will be 27, 28, 29 school year, will help maintain a feeder into Rocky Mount High School. And Rocky Mount Middle School will be an opportunity culture school as well. As Ms. Wiggins just alluded to earlier, Winstead Avenue and Inglewood schools will be reconfigured to K-5 schools, and both schools will also be opportunity culture schools. And the Spanish immersion site, of course, will be Winstead Avenue. I won't go over these again, but we're going to embed these in our presentation for the public. These are the same information that Ms. Wiggins just covered. You could go through. And these are, there you go, thank you. And these are the proposed feeder patterns for the middle and high school. Of course, Nass Central will be a clean feed into Nass Central High School. Red Oak, a clean feed into Northern. Rocky Mount Middle, a clean feed into Rocky Mount. Southern Nash, of course, will be a clean feed into Southern Nash High School. The engagement process will consist of 2 community forums. One is scheduled for tomorrow night, and the other one will be scheduled for the 31st. In our timeline, just bringing us up to where we are tonight. If you go up a little bit more. Of course, tonight we have presenting you here at the committee meetings. Tomorrow night we will have our first community forum, and Wednesday night we'll have our second community forum for the middle schools. And Thursday, the 1st of next week, or this week rather, we're expected to hear from ORED, which is Operational Research Development. As you recall, in the past, they were the same company that helped us with the redistricting 10 years ago. So once we receive an update, to go back one more, once we receive an update from them, we're going to come back to the board and present their findings to the board as well. ORED, as I mentioned earlier, in consultation with them, these are our next steps. This is what they provide. They help us with consolidating existing schools. They give us some guidance there, designing attendance zones, and help us with demographic balancing. Throughout this process, it is our intent to be open and transparent throughout this process, to be very inclusive. Also, this will be a thoughtful process, thought very through carefully and not rushed. And of course, hearing from the public through parent surveys and fielding questions, which we'll do tomorrow night as well. And of course, our focus will be on what is best for our students. All right, at this time, Ms. Angie Miller, she's going to come up and give a layout for 2 schools, Rocky Mount Middle and Edwards, and she's going to give you a detailed plan about what is the plan for those schools, the plans for those 2 particular schools. Ms. Miller?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So bear with me. I'm going to share with you a little bit that our team has worked really hard on getting some of this information together. Several different components have been put together for this strategy. After meeting with the academics team and Ms. Nancy Smith, one of the goals for Edwards Elementary School would be to keep our K-5 students all downstairs. So you'll see that this is a plan that shows you the classrooms by grade level. I know it's small, so bear with me. You'll also see that there's some arrows in red. What has to happen is our team would actually have to submit to DPI a format that will show what it will look like, and DPI would send that approval to us. And at this point, with the restrooms, with replacing existing toilets and downsizing for those elementary students, that is what you see with all the red arrows. That also, again, shows that all K-5 would be downstairs on the bottom levels of Edwards Elementary School. If you scroll to the very next slide, this is a little bit of the exterior. So keep in mind, this is a building process. So we're still looking at all different avenues. Initially, we were looking at a playground area a little different than this, but because it was very confined with square footage, you will see there's a lot of red lines. Those lines are actually security gating and fencing areas, because it was too small to put a playground in a small area between 2 buildings, which initially was what one of our goals was. So you'll see that it shows the removal of the concrete right there where they have a basketball goal. And then you'll see, and you'll see the arrows. where they're gonna put up, fencing, and it goes all the way around to 4 different areas for Edwards. Then the next slide, this is gonna be rough as well. If you scroll on down, this is Rocky Mount Middle School. Bottom left corner, you'll see where it says 500 hall classrooms. Those classrooms are being refurbished as we speak. So there would be actually more classrooms utilized. Keep in mind, that was a very large high school at one time. If you go up very slowly on Hammond Street, you see a lot of red. So City High will remain in place. The red area that you see is new gating and fence area. So looking at putting card readers off of Hammond and off of the other side going in. So it encompasses the City High piece, and then over to the left is Tar River. You know where I'm talking about, that little back gate that used to go into the back of the auxiliary gym. So there would be card readers. So if your staff, teachers are buzzing in, they would actually be able to buzz in and go into that area. So that looks a little different, but you'll be able to see that is why that looks so red. That is a red area. And those are added gates and areas. Other than that, and refurbishing a few of the classrooms, that is some of the main stuff. And keep in mind, this is a building process, so we're looking at this every single day. I'm gonna scroll on down to 2 more parts. This is rough numbers with the demerger cost. And you'll see it's still a building process. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about this. So first, under Williford, NETA and the 500 building are kind of already in place. You know, NETA's already there. It's been there for a couple of years now. It's a fantastic space. I don't know if you've actually had the privilege of being able to see that, but this past summer, the maintenance and operations team revitalized that and updated some of the paint and stuff, and it is remarkable. There is some space on the 500 wing that we just showed you on a previous slide. Furniture, offices, cost that you see that is listed here, because there are some classrooms that will be divided into offices. We're still working through the logistics of that. The parking lot, if you come off the back where the resource center is, it will stay. The cafeteria area, there's a large gate and the dumpsters. So that playground equipment would be relocated to Edwards, and several, I think it's 3 pieces that actually can be moved. We are also, you'll see me, I've got a space in there for more playground equipment as well, but those 3 pieces will be moved, and there will be a parking lot area for at least 20 more parking spaces. And that has already been looked at, and they're in the process of working on some pieces to that. Card readers and doors on different halls, some of which have already been done that we worked on in advance, just for the logistics of the building itself. I will also tell you, and upgrading the media center. Media center and HVAC was already in place for the HVAC piece. We were looking at doing that anyway for Williford. So now that media center, not the multipurpose room, the media center will be the PD room. And when you enter that front entrance, the doors, as though you just come in this back door of the breezeway, the card readers, that will be what is going into your pre-K area. So that is already going to be in place before we get out of school this year. So the teachers and the students and the parents will already be acclimated to that. That is a safety feature, but that is something that will be, they will still be able to walk to the cafeteria just like we do in any of our other middle and high schools that have exterior buildings. So that's already in the works and in place as we speak. Moving down to Rocky Mount Middle. Lighting, upgrades on lighting, ceiling tiles. These are all rough numbers as you see. Phased window replacements. This is a 3-phase process. You heard our team talk about that in previous years as it phased into several different parts of windows and or HVAC. So it'll be a 3-phase process. We think we've not bid this out. This is based on last numbers we used with the with the window situation that we did in replacements at Edwards. Hammond Street gate that you saw in that previous one that was all red and it was marked off as a access gate. Fencing and upgrades of HVAC for several of the classrooms. All of that is listed under the Rocky Mount Middle. Then if you go down to Edwards, plumbing fixtures, knowing that this was going to be one of the biggest undertakings would be just the actual plumbing piece. But it is definitely something that's doable and doable in-house. And we had already sent out and got some bids and conversations on if we needed to contract this services, could we fund that? And that is yes, we can make that happen. Student desks and furniture, you'll see question marks there. All of this is a work in progress. We do have 2 vacant schools and another area that has been used for storage. So trying to find out what we have that is usable. So we'll be looking at that across the board. I think I shared that with y'all when we were closing down Cedar Grove and Swift Creek. And lots of that have already been used in some of our facilities as we speak. Elevator replacement, I know you're looking at that 150. So it's an older elevator. Does this have to happen before July 1? Absolutely not, because we just said that K5 will be downstairs. But looking at the future and the growth, we would be really not doing a due service to ourselves if we did not keep that in the expense to be prepared to replace that system. New signage, bleacher modifications. I will say this, as in any time that we've done a move or a transition with a school, typically when they get in place and the principal's in place, there's a leadership team and a group of parents and kids that are in the process of helping with mascots and or colors or various different things. An example would be with when we went Rocky Mount Middle and they initially became the Ravens because it used to be Rocky Mount High School. And so they had the Griffons everywhere. So the students actually picked and chose those colors with the staff. So I've had several calls, good questions about the athletics piece. So ultimately in 6 months, if they're going to be playing ball, they will have to be Ravens when they start playing ball. There's no way we could get around that in 6 months time frame, but it can look whatever the community and or the students and parents choose at that point, they can grow into that, right? So you'll see that student desks, the elevator piece, the signage and the bleachers, we put 20,000, though that will not possibly happen right immediately as July 1. Fencing, playground and security, I showed you that on the mapping that will be in place. The playground security fencing is what it is called. So that it's easily accessible for our students. Playground equipment, this is kind of questionable. I put this in here just to discuss with you guys. We gave $50,000. You know, we had the rotation. We'll have to update that rotation. I will certainly bring it back to the board to discuss. But putting that money in there, they already will have 3 pieces in place when school starts, if this is the avenue that we go, and we will be able to build on that based on the funding. The abate 9 classrooms, I'll share that with you. So there's been some question about the abate word. So that prior to this discussion in the last few months, the maintenance and operations team had a company come and go through all the classrooms anyway, because it was already on a rotation to be checked, just like when we do Williford and our pre-K kids have to walk to the cafeteria. So everything had passed. No issues there. They did have to abate, not the word abate, encapsulate some problem areas, but none of them did not pass code. So just being giving you all the information, they did have to encapsulate a few places. This has been in the past few months. So that has already been taking place, and they have already evaluated the entire building several months ago and have already worked on that piece as far as the tile and the ceiling. There will be 9 classrooms that will be looked at as well moving forward. If you scroll down just a little bit, you see some numbers about desks. Some of those numbers we use from the numbers we got from Red Oak Elementary for equipment and student desk and chairs. So we know that's going to be a rough estimate, but they were the most current things that we did have.
So I know we'll have a lot of questions around this, so just so we can make sure everybody's recognized and everybody has a chance to speak, just let me know and we'll go around and we can talk to Dr. Ellis and his staff unless there's more before you want
Yeah,
to.
let Heather Louise come up here and explain what we've done with the community question She compiled something together. I wanted Heather to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. So we compiled a survey for the community for the past 2 weeks. They've been answering and they cut off last night. We received about 70 responses altogether. And so some of those things focused in on the location, the future of specific programs, staff assignments and retention, and the student transition and school assignments. So those things have been read, taken into consideration, and we're ready for tomorrow night and Wednesday night as well. Thank you.
Good to move to questions now. All right, any questions for Dr. Ellis and his staff around demerger facilities and the like? Mr. Bissett?
On slide 6, you were highlighted staff meetings, but we didn't. Let's talk about that. At what point are we gonna start having conversations with our staff about, because they wanna know.
So what
And
we.
I know we may not
Right.
know, but I think it's time we start having some open discussion.
So when we had the demerger conversation with the Edgecombe schools, we started, they went 2 or 3 times. Ms. Wallace went with the team and we started talking about the transfer process. We wanted to do the community forums first, push all the information out there. And then what our staff is gonna start doing is scheduling staff meetings where we, just like we did with the other 3 schools, 4 schools, and discuss their questions, because we were talking about today, you know, that PowerPoint, that conversation is gonna be totally different. It's gonna be about them might have a job, what programs we're gonna have. So once we finish these community forums, getting all the questions in, getting in cabinet and talk about this is what we need to talk about, then we'll start scheduling those staff meetings, just like we did with Fairview, DS Johnson, the other schools.
Target date?
I'm hoping as soon as possible. What we like to do is go during their faculty meetings. So right now we're trying to figure out, can you give us a faculty meeting date so we can just start attending? We split it up last time. I think we did. We kind of split it up. We even combined schools. But I'm kind of waiting to see the response from the principals as how quick we can do this. Because it is a different conversation. It's about, you know, am I going to work here? Am I going to work there? So it is a different conversation.
So we'll do the same thing. So someone will go to Edwards and I guess one of the questions that we're hearing is, if I'm a middle school today at Edwards, what happens to me when it becomes middle school? So when, I mean, we know they can't teach kindergarten at a middle school. So when will we know who's gonna start moving and what? I know that's a moving piece for us every time we talk about it.
So I think what you have to think, and I'm gonna let Ms. Wallace, you know, I think she's gonna talk to some of this, but you need to realize we're just taking 400 kids. We get money based on ADM. We're not losing those kids.
Correct.
We just move them to another place. So that conversation will look different, but it's totally different in the demerger where we're actually losing kids and we're losing teacher slots. So it's a different conversation. So Ms. Wallace, if you can.
So if I understand your question correctly, you really want to know when we're going to start meeting with the teachers at the middle school to see where they're going. So the intent transfer window ends mid-February, I think February 12th or 16th. And every week, or really every other day, I'm collecting that information as they submit it, comparing it to where my vacancies are, where my kids will be moved, those type of things. However, until we get the realignment plan fully to see where those kids will be, some may go to Red Oak Middle. I'm not sure at this point. But where the vacancies are will depend on where the ADM is for the students, and that's where they will have the options to go. And those are your teachers at Edwards Middle.
Gotcha. I think so.
Good question. Next question. Dean?
For tomorrow night and Wednesday night, obviously big nights. Is there any way that other things can be rescheduled? I know there's some big events also going on, like for Wednesday night. I think that's for the middle school, right? There's some big events going on for middle school that might have a parent trying to figure out which way they're going to go.
So I guess we could consider rescheduling or having another one. I think we did that with a few of the other ones, but we can definitely discuss that based on the numbers of who show up. Yeah.
Dean?
One more.
Yeah.
On the numbers for Rocky Mountain Middle. Got information that the 295 is a little low. I don't know if that needs to be looked at again.
What's 295 low?
I'm understanding that there's over 400 at Rocky Mountain Middle. I'm just having that answer or ask the question out loud so there can be some clarity.
Are you asking about, say, with city and Tar River?
I asked that question and the people went back and verified that that's just Rocky Mountain Middle. City and Tar River's not included in that number.
I'm not aware of it. I mean, we can look at the latest numbers.
If I could jump in there, Dr. Owens, there's almost 100 students that will be leaving Rocky Mountain Middle.
Correct.
Going to Edgecombe County. So you may at this point have total number somewhere between the mid 350s and 400. But once you pull that group out of about 100 students, then that's going to put you somewhere around that 295, 300 mark.
And just remember, we're trying to keep Rocky Mountain Middle at around 500 to 600. So the feeder pattern for Rocky Mountain High School, we just got to make sure we're putting kids in Rocky Mountain High School as well.
Franklin, was it you? All right.
I have a question.
Ms. Thomas Bullock?
I think this is for Ms. Miller. I just wanted, as we were looking at the maps, to ask the red, like that's off of Hammond Street, is that a gate that's or fencing that's being shown in the red?
It's the fencing that will be in place. When you turn there now, it used to have an automatic fence. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Let me go to that. You're talking about Rocky Mountain Middle?
Yes.
And the gate coming off of Hammond that is between the City High diagram, and there's a gate there already that opens and closes. It will be a new, it'll be a badge access gate. That's not the case right now. And it's not, you don't see it closed quite often. When it was a high school, it was used for that, but now there's a lot of traffic. It'll shut down that traffic. Yes, ma'am.
Then my other question, all of mine are I'm just trying to understand the facility, like with City High and Tar River, do they access the cafeteria, the main cafeteria, or what do they do?
Good question. City High does have a section of it. It's actually got a partition. City High's on one side and Rocky Mountain Middle on another. We have one staff that feeds both. Tar River does eat cafeteria food, but it is at their own facility, so they get their meals over there to their location. They don't come to the cafeteria, but the same staff serves them in the classroom.
And then I had a question about the Edwards fencing. So when you were saying originally the playground was going to be between buildings, but now it's outside. So I see like the baseball field. I'm just trying to figure.
Okay, so we had hoped between
Right.
buildings, because there's a space there now, there's some mechanical equipment, there's like a fence, and there was a project that was recently done and they utilized that space. We thought there might be enough square footage, but there isn't. So if you know where the ball field is, where they use for physical education, there's a basketball court area as well. So it's gonna be encompassed in that area with a fenced in space. Mhm.
And then with busing, would that be still on the side on the hill, or is that gonna be in the front entrance of like Edwards? Or is that transportation that might come later?
I know that I would be speaking out of turn if I answered that question, so I don't know for certain on that.
And then my last question, I think,
Sure.
I know that we talked about the changes in facility going from middle school to elementary school. We talked about bathroom changes. Were there any other changes that still were going to be made in terms of classroom configuration within the classroom or?
There will probably have to be, yes, ma'am, but we've not gotten quite that deep. We have to do what meets code.
Right.
So we're gonna jump on that because you're talking about a very quick turnaround that this has to take place for July 1. So will there have to be some logistical changes based on student and teacher needs? Absolutely.
Dr. Chavis?
She asked a lot of mine, but I'm thinking of traffic flow, drop off, pick up, and trying to envision how that happens for those parents that I get that vision of Red Oak traffic. See, so how are we looking in terms of that plan?
Well, it'll look similar to, don't want to speak out of turn because that's not my circle, but it'll look similar to the way it is now with Rocky Mountain Middle School and how they come and enter that way. And we don't have that same issue there. But we'll.
Because Tar River Academy and City High, those schools do not begin until 9 o'clock. So it gives you time to get your middle school traffic in and out before City High and Tar River Academy traffic comes in. And most of their traffic is going to be located towards the back of the school, whereas your Rocky Mountain Middle School traffic is operating up front on Nash Street.
Dr. Chavis, you good?
Yeah.
Mr. Evans?
Depending on how the first question goes, or maybe a second.
Give it time.
At Edwards Middle, right now, is there an Evolve machine instrument? Yes. All right, what is the plans for that? I've not thought through that plan yet. Maybe good to start protecting the elementary kids. Yeah. If you move it would be great. We're looking for some funding sources there. We want to ensure that we're able to keep our SROs in place for elementary school for next year. That's one of our top priorities because our grant funding sunsets this year for our SROs. So just depending on what happens in terms of grant funding for next year, once that comes out, and what other funding that may be available for us to pursue will kind of determine when and how we can get the EVOL systems in elementary. And Dr. Ellis, if I said anything out of turn, please correct.
You're correct.
Dean?
As far as the SRO and all that, I hope the MOU next year states they will help with traffic control at least the first week of school.
Well, I'm gonna go on record and say this here so that I don't get beat up. But that is a conversation that we've had with both our law enforcement agencies. Our law enforcement agencies, and for good reason, do not want to pan SROs at a particular time of the day, every day, doing a duty, because what it does not give them at that point is the ability to be moving around the school. One of the things when you're looking at trying to secure a school setting is those individuals who have participated in any type of active shooter situation. Those individuals have studied the administration and their routines. They study SROs if they were on campus and their routines, and they're looking for that type of opportunity, which is why you have law enforcement with the SROs do not want to give them a set responsibility of helping with traffic duty. One of the things that I would love is if they could use some of their officers who are on duty, maybe to come over at that time. But again, I understand that just like many other businesses, corporations and organizations throughout the country, people just aren't coming to work, and people are trying to find people to put in place, so they're already short staffed and just don't have the resources in many cases to have extra officers out to help with traffic duty.
I don't know a school in our system who would not agree they need help the first week of school on traffic control. So it needs to be written at least the first week. I understand now don't want to do it. Well, you know, the first week of school, every school in this system needs traffic control that I've seen.
First month.
At least the first week, and we can write it, we need to include the second week.
But I just didn't want you all to think that that has not been a conversation that's been held by the superintendent and I. And so we'll continue to bring that conversation to the forefront.
Anyone else? Ms. Bullock?
I have a question for Miss Miller. Where'd she go? Tell us again, what you said about the names of the schools and how that may or may not be happening at the beginning of this transition, because the letters that I've been getting mostly concern the identity being lost of Edwards when those kids go to Rocky Mount. So help me understand again what you said.
I can speak to the piece that I can encumber with the athletics piece whenever Rocky Mountain Middle School was open and the process and procedure that we had in place. It was Rocky Mountain Middle School, but it still had the Griffons. So I was actually referencing it when it said the bleachers, and there would be some issues that we would have to update, right? So it will be Rocky Mountain Middle School July 1st, and it'll be the Ravens because that's on the walls. If at that point, when the principal and their team of students and or communities look to change a mascot and or colors, typically that has been a process at the school level when they look at what are our next steps, what do we need to do, and then we can make it be the identity of those individuals at that time. It just in a 6-month turnaround, it just wouldn't, logistically, we couldn't make that happen. So I wanted to be truthful when the parents were calling and saying, hey, if my kid plays football next year and they're at Rocky Mountain Middle School, what is it gonna look like? Well, it will look like a Raven. They will be on the football field behind the school. And their uniforms will say Rocky Mount Ravens because they've been ordered in advance and they're already in place. That was, I'm sorry if I spoke out of turn. That's what I was referencing.
That clears it up. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I've got just a couple quick ones that I was going to ask if give y'all some time if you got more. First one, I know this is moving, but if we're taking Rocky Mount Middle up to 500 or 600 kids potentially, can we give parents any idea about class sizes? I mean, I know we don't have that information to be exact in any way, but what might it look like at that size?
So class sizes, the number of students doesn't have anything to do with class size. You get an allotment of teachers based on number of students. The state is like K3 is have 19. Unfortunately, 6-8, I think they have what, 28? Ms. Nancy Smith might be.
6th grade is 1 to 27. 7th and 8th grade positions are allocated 1 to 26.
So really, it really just happens on the programs you offer. You know, there might be a class with 16 that's taking a Math 1. If you add 16 in Math 1, you're gonna have 36 possibly in another class. So when I was a principal, what you tried to do was balance those classes. And I think once you figure out what you're getting from those two schools, you start creating that plan. But as far as Edwards has more than 500, Southern Nash, Middle, I mean, they have 800. So that probably won't affect anything.
Second question, we've talked about engagement for the parents. I guess putting a plan for engagement around staff. Is there engagement for the students? I mean, is there at some point in this transition where they're allowed to tour new schools, do things with what will be new students in the coming years? Do they get to take part in that as well?
So we talked, I think it was at the Family Ambassador meeting, maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and that was question brought up. We thought that would be something good we could do. once we start establishing what teachers are possibly going over there, we thought it'd be a good idea to bus kids right down the road. Let them meet the principal. I've had questions about, is the principal gonna be there? Well, we hope. I mean, yeah, we plan on it. But then we can tour just like if it was a orientation of fifth graders coming into a middle school, but we can do all that. But you gotta remember now, to me, the majority of those students are gonna be Edwards students. So it's like, you're gonna take that whole group and they're gonna turn around and say, I know him, he's in my sixth grade. Because Dr. Farrell's right. Depending, you might have 200 Rocky Mountain Middle School kids left. So really it's the bulk of Edwards is just going, to me, just a better facility. That's really that we can build on, because if you heard Ms. Miller talk about the phases, well, the other phase is, our goal is to get City High School off that campus. And that's a serious conversation we're having now. So phase 2 could be, that's another 14 classrooms that are just sitting there, empty, that have been renovated, just a few years back. So just think about what this could actually look like going down the line when you're talking about moving some of these other programs out. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other topics? Any other discussion?
Hold on.
No, go
ahead.
Yes, Mr. Sharp.
I have a few. First of all, Dr. Ellis, your team, thank you. Can you talk about the amount of different elective programs we got at Rocky Mount Middle as opposed to Rocky Mount or Edwards, and how we plan on merging those programs, those elected together?
Did you say program?
Electives.
Electives. Okay, so I'm gonna consider electives and programs. I think we have string instruments, I believe, at Edwards.
We have strings at Edwards, but we don't have it right now.
Right. So we're not trying to do away with any of the programs. In fact, what we're trying to do now is enhance what Rocky Mountain Middle already has. Remember that electives are created by the amount of students who want to take an elective. 4 or 5 years ago, when I got here, there were 2 or 3 middle schools that had strings and they had 2 and 3 kids in it. So of course, that's going to cause you to say, wait a minute, if I have 2 in this class, I got 52 in PE. So I would think that Rocky Mountain Middle with the Edwards combination is going to have more programs because those kids already have those programs in place. We're not taking those programs away from Edwards. If we have students who want to take it, it'll make a course and a teacher will be provided for those students. So I really think you're also going to have that blend of more Spanish immersion students wanting to get into that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade program, because if they stay on track, they're going to be hitting Rocky Mount High School with basically 2 credits of Spanish. They'll probably also have a Math 1, and they're going to push into Rocky Mount High School into the IB program, AP program, capstone, all that. They're going to be ahead of the game because we're going to track those kids, which I would think that is what parents, that's a good line to go ahead and push up to the high school.
So that's a great segue into my second question, sir. So space availability, I know what's going on with the Pax and Patterson. I know we got spaces that people got allocation funding that's already been set aside at the Pax and Patterson locations. What's going on with those?
I didn't hear that.
Can you repeat that, Bill? I'm not sure.
CTE side of it.
CTE side.
Pax and Patterson.
Oh, Paxton Patterson. So
yes, sir.
We're talking about the Edwards lab, Chad?
Both.
Okay.
I know we got funding over there at Rocky Mountain.
Correct.
So Mr. Sharp, with the Paxton Patterson labs, we have labs at both Rocky Mount and Edwards. We'll be able to utilize all of that material. Actually, it'll give the Rocky Mount site even more materials to utilize. So we will be able to take all of that to Rocky Mount Middle School.
So are we relocating those areas now in those at middle school, Rocky Mount Middle School?
Yes, Rocky Mount Middle School has 2 Paxton Patterson labs, and so does Edwards Middle School. They have 2. So we'll have a total of 4 right now that we can use.
So when you're consolidating, something's got to move.
But you're keeping students, Mr. Sharp, you're not decreasing students.
No. Space-wise, you're bringing students over. So you're going to maintain the same facility or same location for the Paxton Patterson and Rocky Mount Middle? Because I think that's over there now with the 6th graders or 5th graders.
So if you're asking me about what it's going to look like in this building, I can't tell you, but I know we have empty classrooms that we're going to have that discussion as to where we're going to put this stuff. Because right now, Rocky Mountain Middle has vacant rooms that right now we're going in to refresh them. And then we're going to start deciding, all right, so what's the CTE hall? What is the 6th grade hall going to look like? Where's the 7th grade hall? That'll be something probably later from Ms. Miller's group to determine what we can use.
Okay, so that was a part of the layout for the plans that you had for Rocky Mount Middle.
Right. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is that it, Bill?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Ms. Thomas Will.
Well, Dr. Ellis really spoke to my point. I didn't have a question, but I was just more so making a statement about, this being a matter of perspective more so than we're not trying to erase Edwards Middle students and their cultures, kind of merging those two things together. So you're going to have an increase in programming and an increase in all those other things at Rocky Mountain Middle School, because we're going to bring a lot of those things over, because I've asked a lot of questions and Ms. Nancy Smith and Dr. Farrell and others can, attest to that. But we are going to, enhance those things, like you said, at Rocky Mountain Middle. And I think a lot of parents may be more concerned that you're going to lose out on things, but no, this is actually going to increase those things. The empty classes that are at Rocky Mount Middle now will be filled, but even then they're not at, we're not going to be at full capacity, so we'll have space and opportunity to grow just with the classrooms as well as the programming. So it's not a loss of identity, it's just creating a new identity. And I think it's really important for parents to see, for us to be transparent and present that to parents so that they understand that.
Thank you. Well, let me get Ricky first and then Franklin.
This might be Ms. Miller. With the plan we have in place, feeding into Rocky Mount and the new classifications in high school athletics and everything, is this going to be able to keep all our kids in conference? Now, I know we can't help Southern Barty County, they're going like crazy, but, and if you need to check on it and get back with me, I understand.
I wish I did have to check on it and get back with you, but we can't. I would be giving you false hope to tell you that we don't know exactly what we're going to get when we get the lines and the numbers. The timing has not been on our side because the state met again today. And there are going to be 8 classifications, and based on the rough numbers, it could separate us, yes. And it would separate us for 4 years if that happens, but it's still a big what if. It's based on our 20-day numbers next year. So 20 days after school starts next year, I could, it's 50-50, if you want me to be real honest.
Well, which goes, well, but it also goes back to the point is, if we create this, if we concentrate on pulling kids out of other schools to attend Rocky Mount Middle, based on some of these other programs that we're going to offer, that's how you're going to build this school. You're not going to get it by taking kids from the southern end to this end. You're going to build a middle school that you can track these kids. They're going for specific programs, and you build that school. That's why we're hoping when we offer some of these programs, we'll be able to fill this building, get it to about 600, 650, whatever. We're going to have the room. And then we won't have to answer some of those questions, because you're right. I worry about that, because just capacity. They're not living in the city.
And I think as a community, we have to keep a pulse on that, not just when we draw lines now, but every 4 years, the state is going to redistrict or reclassify. In 2 years, because of our grandfathered students, we will need to keep a pulse on that every 2 years just to be able to balance our district.
Thanks. Mr. Lamb?
First of all, I want to say thank you to the committee for thinking about it, because, the one word I have not heard mentioned the entire time was mobile classroom. I can remember when Southern Nash Middle had 14. And we're lucky enough, because a lot of people don't remember, Rocky Mountain Middle used to be Rocky Mountain High School, and there was millions of dollars spent remodeling the cafeteria and all years back before Rocky Mountain High School was even built. So we're very fortunate that we can expand and grow, and no mention of mobile units anywhere. Thanks to the committee.
So thank you for the cafeteria. I was at Rocky Mount Senior High with the new cafeteria, so thank you for that.
I'm just showing my age.
All right, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Ellis and everybody. If nothing else, I'm going to ask Ms. Finch to come up and talk to us a little bit about rebranding of the Nash County Public Schools.
Good evening. I promise I'll be quick. So yes. So, and I'm going to take y'all through a brief history, which I'm sure y'all already are familiar with our logos. So, as you all know, in 2016, when the bill was passed for the demerger of Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools, the name changed and a new logo was presented as I believe it was July 1st, 2020, when that became into effect. My predecessor came in last year to make sure that we needed to change the logo so it was ADA compliant, so we could meet those standards. Because the coral color, which was apparently the 2019 Pantone color of the year, and the deep blue, classic blue, was the Pantone color of the year for 2020. Those were not ADA accessible or compliant for the website or for visually learning. So the plan originally, and according to the strategic plan, was for the logo to change and be unveiled coming up in July 1st, 2024. So with that being said, I'm going to show you, our team has been working for the past several months on what's ADA compliant and what meets those needs, as well as for a more friendly approach that represents a competitive economic landscape in which we are for Nash County Public Schools, a more modern look as well. So this would be using the logo alone. We've kept the N, what we have right now currently, and we've placed it inside of the county. And this is a modern, sleek look, which is both forward looking and deeply rooted in the community's identity. As you can tell, the O encompasses the county map, which brings back the focus on community focus and community impact, and it's designed to create a sense of momentum and advancement with our county. The top and the second color choice, we have a different color choices in which can be utilized. This is normal for academia and also for branding purposes for any business. We also have about 4 other complementary colors that can be utilized with this as well. You see that some already with the CTE banners, as well as the HR banners and the advanced placement banners, which uses a cyan blue, a yellow, and another deep dark black gray, which we took that into consideration since some things have already been printed. This is an example of what it would look like on our website. That is the cyan blue that's wrapped around the advanced placement, and that you see in the word placement being written. Since we already utilize that, that would be one of the complementary colors that goes with the logo. This is what you would see for the Nash County Public Schools app with the N in the county. In case you wanted some coffee. And more coffee for Mondays. So I know the questions might be, what is this going to cost, right? So luckily, we have been doing a feasibility analysis over the past 6 months. I've personally gone through and walked the hallways at all our schools. We still have logos of Nash Rocky Mount Public Schools when I was in high school. That was a very long time ago. So there's some stuff that still needs to be updated. So those things we can do in-house. With some of those signs, we can do those in-house. But mostly, from a budgetary constraint standpoint, a lot of our stuff's already digital. So we have the website, the app, all of our schools, all of those things are basically digital anyways. So that's no cost to that at all. Being top mind of our budget with my department, we have not had as much things printed as they've done in the past, knowing that we might print things towards the end of this fiscal year so we could incorporate that. Additionally, I've worked with Caroline and Sarita on creating a brand guide, which is about 75 pages. So if different departments want to print items, pop-up banners, you name it, we've already have those built out in size, and we are shopping for competitive prices as well to keep those. Any questions?
Any questions on that? It's time for a new hire. Yes, sir, Mr. Edwards?
Is this a done deal, or is this something that we vote on like we did for the other changes?
I don't know if we vote on the logo or not. We can find out. We were just gonna share it. I think the last logo was done by a student. Right.
Right.
And we were ADA in compliance. We weren't, yeah. So we're kinda in a, well, we're just in a little, we gotta figure it out. I'll say it that way. I don't know if you voted, to be honest with you. I don't know. I wasn't here on that vote. So
They did not.
I don't think we did.
Tell me again why we have to change this.
It's for ADA compliant, and also because of the community stakeholder feedback that we've had from our Superintendent Student Ambassador Council group, as well as some staff members as well. So, and we've also took a look at about 85 county school districts in the state of North Carolina, and we took into effect of how we see Nash County and what that looks like. And so with how we are Nash County, and we are coming out of, going to be demerging. So it goes along with that.
The colors
And
aren't
the
right.
pencil
If
is
you
kind
ask me,
of
that's what she had to tell
elementary.
me.
It's-
She had to
nobody
tell
really
me
uses
that
pencils
the
anymore.
colors aren't right. We can't use those colors on the website because ADA compliant, when it shows up on the screen, it's just not, this bit is ain't changed. So I'm just telling you, it was done last year and we didn't really do anything about it. We were kind of waiting because it would be best if we demerged and then went forward. Anything with Coral, as I told Ms. Finch, we're just gonna leave it for right now. Anything moving forward is gonna have to be the certain color, so we won't have to incur that expense.
The block in looks just like Northern Nash, so I'm sure Franklin's gonna have some trouble with that. I mean.
I don't have a trouble with anything Nash.
Dee, did you have anything else?
You're welcome.
Nash Central, Southern Nash, Northern.
It's all in.
Any other questions on the rebrand? Thank you, Mrs. Finch.
Mm-hmm.
Our last item is an action item. Ms. Saunders is going to come speak to us a little bit about a accounting software change. Sounds like we're getting kicked out of one. Got to go find another one.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So not so much as kicked out, but I stand before you this evening to bring the Link accounting software contract to you. If you all do not know, we are on SunPac. We are one of 30 school districts in North Carolina still on the older system. SunPac has sent out their sunset date. It'll be in 2026. So it's important that we go ahead and move towards something that is in compliance with the new school modernization plan. And they said that by 2029, all school districts, all LEAs have to be on something cloud-based. So Link has now pushed out their cloud-based product. Even though Link is in 80 or more school districts in North Carolina, their cloud-based system, it's only 5 or 6 of them up there. but they all have to move towards that. We're just trying to do it now that the opportunity has presented itself. Since SUMPAC is ending, we're gonna go ahead and, if you guys approve it, if this could be taken to the board for the full board's approval so that we can move forward with this implementation.
Questions or comments around cost, around what we're paying now versus what we will be paying, which is comparable?
It's very comparable. So right now for SUMPAC, we paid roughly $99,000 for the annual license. This link contract, as you can see, that was in the assembly, is very close. It's right around the same thing, but it's actually less. We got them to re-quote us with the numbers after the demerger. So they did give us, so the total would be 95,000. And then the implementation cost is just a one-time fee. So the 99 is around the same, and then implementation, we have to pay it that one time. And the new quote is 64,000 opposed to the 71.
Any issues in carrying both for 2 years? From a cost standpoint or from just running your systems?
So the plan is not to have to carry them for 2 years. So the contract with SUMPAC ends June 30th, this upcoming fiscal close. And Link has told us that their implementation is 3 to 6 months, right? So we still have 5 or 6 months with SUMPAC. And if we can get that implementation to happen, we wouldn't have to carry another full year of SUMPAC, definitely not another 2. But the sooner we can make it happen, the less we will have to pay SUMPAC.
Any questions, any additional information, Mr. Lamb?
What about with your training of your staff and satisfying our auditor?
So the training, of course, is going to be through them, and most of it is going to be virtual. So it'll have to be myself and hopefully some more team members that we really take on and be able to train across the district. It is going to be a huge step. This is the accounting software for the district and personnel software. But as a district, we're going to take on the training to make sure we get everyone trained throughout the district in a short amount of time.
By doing this and all, it shouldn't have any problems with our auditor passing the auditor report.
I do not think so. I do not think so at all. No, sir.
Good question. Anybody else?
Will these overlap as far as payments? Or will we have, make sure I say it right, Link getting ready? I mean, I understand we may have to pay an implementation fee, but I sure would like for that to, when this one sunsets, we cut this one on and there's no overlap and save money.
So it's definitely going to have to be an overlap because we have to give them time to convert our data for their system.
But
so
we
we're
can
already
take the data merge and then go live July 1.
hopefully if not before then, depending on the implementation, so that we don't have to we want to move as quickly as Link can do our stuff. So we hope not to it's going to overlap. I don't know how to, we can't get around it. It's going to overlap so that we don't just do away with SUMPAC and still need them. If not overlap a full year, it'll still overlap because they're only pulling 7 to 10 years of our data. Whichever one we decide, we'll have to pay a little more for 10 years. But in the instance that we need some more of that, we don't want SUMPAC gone. In the instance that something happens, we don't want them completely away from us.
All right, if I can get a motion from the committee to recommend this to our board for approval next week.
Move to approve that we recommend to the full board approval for the Link contract.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. Second from Dr. Chavis. Any discussion around the item? If none, all those in favor, please vote by the sign aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by no? So the motion carries. Recommendation will be made. Thank you very much, Ms. Saunders. And that is it for agenda items. Anybody else? Anything for the good of Administrative Services and Operations Committee? If not, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Dunton, and thank you to all chairs and committee meeting, members, excuse me. Just a reminder of our committee meetings coming up for the next 2 evenings. I'm pretty sure that all, board members who can attend will do so, so that we can hear the concerns of the community. Other than that, this evening has been very productive, and I want to say thank you to all involved, and thank you for all the hard work. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.